Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today we're going to be discussing Unit 2.3, which is all about the structure of ionic solids. So let's get started. So what you're seeing in front of you is a particle drawing of a block of sodium chloride. The purple circles are the sodium ions, the green ones are the chloride ions. And there's two things that I want you to notice about this drawing. Number one, these particles are drawn somewhat to size scale. Sodium ions are smaller than chloride ions. Okay, so they've drawn them that way. I also want you to notice that the ions are in this every other repeating pattern, and that is because ionic solids, the ions align themselves to maximize the oppositely charged attraction between the cations and the anions, and they want to minimize the repulsion between like charged ions. So that's why they're arranged that way. I also want you to notice that in an ionic solid, unlike a covalent compound, we don't have isolated compounds. We don't just have one Na and one Cl bonded together as one unit, and then there's off to the side another Na and Cl bonded together. Ionic solids are not discrete molecules. They are whole blocks of ions, like what you're seeing in front of you. This structure is sometimes referred to a lattice structure. So these ions are held at what are positions called lattice sites. What is holding it together is a term we've seen before, electrostatic attraction, which is just a fancy term that means opposites attract to one another. Ionic solids have very, very, very high melting and boiling points, because they are held so tightly together. Those ions are held in these very hard, very brittle lattice structures, which also makes them very poor conductors. They don't conduct electricity. And just so you all know, in order for something to conduct electricity, there are two requirements. You have to have charged particles, first of all. Okay, great, we've got that. But the second requirement, those charged particles have to be able to flow and move around freely. And that's not happening here because those ions are locked into place. If we were to melt this ionic solid into what we call molten form, then the ions can flow. So ionic compounds can only conduct electricity if they are in their molten form, or as we'll discuss in a later unit, if they've been dissolved in water, for example. But we'll talk about that later. So I've got a practice problem for you. I've got a drawing here of lithium bromide, and I'm asking you, what's wrong with this picture? So I want you to pause your video, think about what are some things that need to be fixed about this drawing here. Okay, there's actually two things wrong with the drawing. Number one is the size of the particles. In the drawing here, the lithium ions are drawn larger in size than the bromide ions, and that's incorrect. The bromide ions are larger than the lithium ions. The second error is the way that they are arranged. Remember what we said. The ionic solid is arranged so that oppositely charged particle attraction is maximized. So we want that sort of every other arrangement of the ions. We want to maximize attraction and minimize repulsion. So that was a short one, and I hope you all learned a little something about ionic solids, and I look forward to seeing you next time.